Good evening, friends, and welcome to a very ill edition of Tim Kirby Russia. Not in the 80s sense of the word ill, in the more classical sense of the word ill, because I'm feeling quite terrible. Perhaps I've gotten the particular mystery sickness again for like the fourth or fifth or sixth time. Who knows? The symptoms are very similar. But anyways, I'm on sort of the upswing, and today was a major day in Russian news and media. We had the long-awaited phone call between Trump and Putin, and perhaps this might just be my physical state, but let's just say I'm not super impressed or unimpressed. It was kind of, let's just say that let's talk about some of the interesting aspects of this together, because I want to do a live stream to talk to you. And remember, if you guys write anywhere on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, and I mean anywhere, you comment under anything, it all appears in one place that I call the chat, and I will be able to see it for sure. So if I say something that you either agree with, disagree with, or you have questions, write them anywhere on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore in any comment under any post, and I'll see them. Or you can call in, but I'd like you to call in after I'm done talking about what I want to talk about. That shouldn't take too long. Okay, so I'm kind of looking over here, and I'm looking at what RT has for the Trump-Putin phone call. And it's kind of weird because Russians have been very afraid of what they call dogovornichok, as in the little agreement, where they'll make some sort of little, deal with the West that might nullify a lot of the value of the special military operation. I don't see that during this phone call. What I do see are some things that are weird. Because remember, a lot of people around Trump, especially Keith Kellogg, that guy, boy, did he really like the idea of that whole ceasefire thing. And let me remind you that you've probably seen on my channel, shared a few times, that, the Russians are very afraid that during a 30-day ceasefire, the Ukrainian side will just rearm and sort of reassert itself, and the war will drag on even longer. So it'll sort of, rather than leading the war to being a quicker end, it'll actually prolong the war. And numerous Ukrainian politicians have openly said over Twitter and other formats, Telegram as well, that awesome, during the 30-day break, we will rearm and get stuff from NATO. So a lot of the Russians' fears have been confirmed. And the dogovornichok has not happened because it would seem from the way at least RT is reporting. I read also the Hill's interpretation of this and, of course, the Western mainstream media's interpretation of this, but boy, are they a disinformation factory. But anyways, if you look at RT and the Hill, their opinion on what was said, they're only agreeing to have a 30-day ceasefire in terms of energy infrastructure and maybe fighting in the Black Sea. Now, that's very strange, and let me explain to you why that's strange. Okay, first off, with the exception of some maintenance workers or, unfortunate passersby, when the Russians hit energy, the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, it doesn't technically kill anyone. It certainly makes life there miserable, but it doesn't really kill anyone per se. So it doesn't really stop the violence per se. And also, it depends on what reports you believe in or read, but Ukraine's energy infrastructure is pretty thoroughly trashed as it is. So it's kind of like, okay, you make an agreement somewhere during the middle of a boxing match where you're like, you know what, we're going to do this more like a sparring fight and just aim for like the shoulders and the chest during this boxing match, right? Well, you're already halfway through the boxing match and the guy's face is already bleeding. It's kind of like that. It's like, well, I don't know. Why are we agreeing to this weird head protective rule set when one guy's head is already messed up? Very weird. Very, very weird. Okay. So I don't quite understand that because, again, the Ukrainian energy infrastructure has been hit so many times, and it doesn't really meet up with this logic of, so many people are dying, says Trump. Okay. Weird. Very weird. All right, but whatever. It's probably why, at least according to both Russian and alternative English-speaking media, theoretically Putin is at least, to an extent, agreed to this. But also you have to remember, there was a 3-hour call. So apparently the call was 3 hours. And all we've got are a couple points from 3 hours of discussion. And of course, when there's all this diplomacy stuff, when leaders talk, there's always something done well in advance. So there are probably very few surprises during this phone call. So that's point number one. And then point number two is potentially having a 30-day ceasefire on the Black Sea. Now, not to underestimate the craftiness of any opponent, but also from what I understood, the Ukrainian Navy was never really in a great particular condition, even at the start of the war. And if you'll note, there have been very few naval operations. There was that battle for Snake Island at the beginning of the war, but I think the Ukrainians, who in theory may have seized it or didn't seize it, came so on rafts. Generally, if you see the Russians shooting something that's Ukrainian, it's a small boat to try to get to sort of sneak infantry onto an island, or especially across the Dnieper River at certain parts. You don't really see like a submarine, big boat kind of battle, especially because I'm not particularly sure if the Ukrainians ever had submarines. That is a big advantage for the Russians. I'll put it that way. So it makes me kind of think that if this is part of the agreement, first off, again, we have to have a 30-day ceasefire, but we pick two forms of the 30-day ceasefire that don't change anything. Maybe if NATO is being sneaky and there's actually NATO submarines or some sort of other NATO-based naval support that I'm not aware of as a simple man who does simple, good old-fashioned citizen journalism, just usually from the standpoint of being a citizen of Russia, maybe that's it. Maybe the U.S. or somewhere in NATO there's some activity on the Black Sea. People have said, one thing I do know about is on the Black Sea, that's one position from which I believe, NATO sends out its drones not to blow people up, but its drones to sort of comb the air, find targets. So perhaps that would sort of be like, okay, we are going to push our guys back who do the targeting and sort of spying, but as we're pushing them back, you don't blow them up. I don't know. Again, very weird sort of agreement here. Okay, so anyways, what did RT actually have to say? Because the longer I live here, the more I respect RT just more and more. So you should also listen to that interview with, I forget what his first name is, Charles Sanchez? Something Sanchez and Tucker Carlson. He talks about RT. I shared that on my channel. Really good stuff if you want to get some inside baseball on what RT is really like. So anyways, the RT says, President Vladimir Putin and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump held a phone conversation to discuss efforts to achieve a peaceful resolution, blah, blah, blah. Both leaders have reportedly agreed to the need for a lasting peace, supposedly, and confirmed a 30-day mutual suspension of strikes on energy infrastructure. Okay, so again, I've never negotiated a peace agreement between major world powers. I don't know what this whole 30-day nonsense is about. Maybe someone who works in diplomacy is going to be like, Tim, you're an idiot. You're a complete moron. Of course, you start with baby steps. You start by agreeing to something small. Just 30 days of not particularly attacking the energy infrastructure of the other country that you've already blown up. Okay, maybe. So according to the Kremlin, Putin immediately gave the corresponding order to the Russian military. So apparently that part of this 30-day ceasefire, the weirdest part, is I guess already happening. They continue. The two leaders also addressed a potential maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea, broader negotiations to end hostilities, and the need to prevent further escalation. Well, that part about preventing further escalation, well, that's interesting. It's kind of a shame that I haven't seen any details about that anywhere. I wonder what that might mean. I wonder exactly how that's going to play out. So that's interesting. Excuse me again. I'm not feeling well today, so if I'm a little sniffly, please forgive me. I just think this is an important historic moment, and I can't sleep anyways. The Kremlin has confirmed that a prisoner exchange of 175 detainees, blah, blah, blah. These prisoner exchanges have happened a bunch of times. I think they're ultimately kind of meaningless. The White House has announced that Russia and the U.S. will immediately start negotiations in the Middle East to resolve the conflict. But again, there have already been 2 rounds of sort of preliminary negotiations in the Middle East. This is nothing new. So, Yes, very, very weird. Anyways, let's see if you guys have some comments on this somewhere before I continue on. Let's see. No comments. There's a lot of people watching today, and yet there's no comments. That is very weird. Did anyone want to call in? Sometimes people want to call in. Call-ins are now available. But anyways, let's continue on. You can use the raise your hand function to call in. Anyways, let's just say Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky, or Volodymyr, as he's called over there, has said that Kiev would support an energy infrastructure ceasefire, but needs more information. Well, again, who really cares what he thinks? I don't think either Trump or Putin particularly care what he thinks, especially because you have to remember that both of them said that they need a new president in Ukraine to sign off on any deals between the United States and Russia. So at least on that side of things, Trump and friends, and sometimes Trump's fake friends, and Putin and the rest of his administration at least agree on one thing. Let's see. Germany's outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz has welcomed the ceasefire on energy infrastructure agreed upon by Trump and Putin, calling it an important first step, adding that a complete ceasefire for Ukraine must follow soon. Okay. We'll see about that, Scholz. Plus, I thought Scholz was on the way. Yeah, he's on the outgoing Chancellor. Yeah, he doesn't even matter anymore. Donald Trump has shared his personal comments of the phone conversation, saying it was in true Trump fashion. We're going to go back to second grade English. A very good and productive one. Okay, fourth grade English. Very good, productive conversation, he said on Truth Social. He announced an immediate ceasefire on all energy infrastructure, blah, 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 and this is done for the sake of humanity. Well, I don't know. You never know with Trump. He likes to make a lot of threats about killing people and then not actually kill them, so who knows. Maybe he's going to make it look like this is a terrible deal, and it's actually a good deal. And let's see. Here's a quote from someone on Sky News. There's an old saying in diplomatic circles: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And believe me, Ukraine is on the menu, said analyst Michael Clark. Well, to be honest, from an American, a Trump America, a MAGA America, and a Russian standpoint, yeah, carving this thing up between themselves sounds like a plan. It's become a toxic asset from the way that Trump sees the world. And I think one of the main things that, not just because he's a business person, but I think Trump is trying to find a way out of this war of Ukraine. The more I sort of sit here and think about these kind of things. I've mentioned many times before, we've seen I've made videos about it, that Trump wants a buyout from Ukraine. But I think part of the reason that he wants this buyout is I think, those not so nice people who are still alive, who have been very influential in the Western world for a long time, and the military-industrial complex, and others of their ilk. That's a fun word, ilk. I think they want to get paid off for this, or they really need to compensate for the losses here. So I think that Trump, with this demand of getting a lot of value out of Ukraine, I don't think that that's just his fun business spirit or his being a dick to prove he's the coolest guy in the room. I think he really sees some necessity in getting value out of this. So again, let's see what kind of value he can get out of this. Because to be honest, guys, on like the scale of countries, true, a lot of the better mineral resources and land and all that were lost to the Russians already. But any large piece of territory that can be exploited leads to wealth. If you look at the history of the world, generally countries that are really, really rich, or empires that are really rich, tend to be really, really big. And there's a reason for it. So I even think that even if Trump were sort of stuck with having total domination over some sort of like rump Western-only Ukraine, that would still, as long as he could make sure the United States would be able to keep it and exploit it for generation upon generation, he'd still come out quite in the net positive, in my opinion. Or at least that's the way I think history shows things. So, despite the fact that the Ukrainians said they today during the phone call did something like 200 okay, that they led some sort of assault with 200 guys and 29 pieces of equipment during the phone call. Who cares? That's nothing. Samuel Charap, a senior political scientist at the Rand Corporation, a Washington-based global policy and security think tank, has shared on X that the phased ceasefire approach is a possible viable path to an eventual cessation of hostilities if implemented effectively. So this is, again, weird. These are the kind of people like the Rand Corporation I think Trump is kind of trying to make happy. He's kind of being like, look, guys, this thing sucked, but I think we can get something out of it. And I think that that's maybe a little bit of a soft confirmation of my theory. Trapp believes that starting with a small, more verifiable steps that can build confidence is a more practical approach than attempting an immediate full ceasefire. Interesting. Coming from someone who's very pro-military industrial complex. We'll see how it goes from here, he concluded, emphasizing that while the outcome depends on further implementation, it's not a bad result. So he's happy with it. This one will be interesting. A man with a very unfortunate last name that must be pronounced in Russian to be nice in English. Russian Member of Parliament Leonid Slutsky, speaking to RT, has described the Putin-Trump negotiations as 148 minutes of effective diplomacy that could become a prelude to peace, provided Russia's national interests are upheld. Every day, I like Slutsky more and more. Slutsky is the guy who replaced Zhirinovsky as the head of the LDPR, and I don't know. He's pretty wise. He doesn't. I'll put it this way: Zhirinovsky told the truth, but he kind of told the truth in a clownish package, and people didn't listen to him. It's kind of like the jester at the court. He's always free to speak his mind because he's the clown, he's the jester, he's the jokester. It doesn't count. And maybe he kind of had to fulfill that role, especially in the 90s, when speaking the truth about the state of Russia was not a very positive thing. But anyways, with Slutsky, I think he's, first off, he's tall, he has a very deep voice, and he speaks with extreme confidence. So I think Slutsky actually, in the future, if he plays his cards right, which he probably won't, but if he would, he actually could really increase the spread of the LDPR as a party, and maybe even compete for the throne. So yeah, Slutsky, pretty impressive guy. Let's see, what is it we have here? The positions of Moscow and Washington are gradually converging, and there's no space for Ukraine between them, said State Deputy Alexei Zhuravlyov told we will negotiate only and exclusively with the U.S. Well, that's true, because there's no point in negotiating with the Ukraine, because it doesn't really matter. Okay, interesting. Let's see. Oops, that's not the menu. Did anyone want to call in, or do we have any messages? There's so many people watching. Thank you for showing up, guys. Very cool, but like, there are messages. Okay, oh my gosh, here we go. MS writes, "Hi, Tim. No question of present. Just saying love your live streams. Thank you for all you do." MS. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. But at the same time, man, as I've written here before, I'm kind of actually getting close to maybe having to quit here. Because with the social media and stuff, you kind of have to keep up like a certain amount of like content per month, or there's just no point in doing it. Like if you do one video a month, unless it's like a full documentary movie, people can do that. There are channels that really have some quite crazy editing and only do documentaries, and you can succeed that way. But like, I don't know, guys. I'm a little bit defeated and disheartened. So who knows about the future of Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore? It's not a very lucrative project. Ruth writes, I have not met anyone named Ruth before. I've only heard that name as like a theoretical name, and it's nice to meet someone named Ruth finally. All I can say is at least Trump is trying to get peace. Well, we got to be careful. We've got to be careful about that, Ruth, about like, oh my gosh, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Is that the expression? I'm terrible with expressions, even in my own native language. But yeah, I mean, because a lot of people who are not the nicest people in the world, who we call globalists, well, they have good intentions. Hey, you want to just, India has such a high population. Why don't we just reduce it? That's their good intentions. It's for the planet. It's for ecology. So, although it does seem like Trump does want to kind of end this thing, and one thing that also gives me hope is, well, here, about your thing. So, just trying to do something, especially when you're the emperor of the United States, you got to get the job done. It's the United States. It's a big dog. You got to get the job done. There, you know, um, when you have your kids and your kids like try, I don't know, jeez, your kids try for the first time to bake a cake and it's all like lopsided and the part that's shorter is burnt and the part that's really fat is like liquidy. You know, that you can be like, you know, kids, you tried and you tried cooking and that's great. Why don't you try again? Well, with President Trump, who's a ultra successful 80-year-old billionaire, he's almost 80, I think, who's the president of the United States, try, like Yoda said, there is no try. There is no try, Trump. You've got to get the job done. So, but I do think that judging by a lot of the things that Trump has said, especially over the years, and especially during his first presidential campaign when saying nice things about Russia was not exactly the cool thing to do, he has been sort of consistent in his desire to have a reasonable relationship with Russia, I guess. So yeah, hopefully we'll achieve something. But I think, I'll put it this way: of almost, let's see, Slutsky said 148 minutes, so that's 2.5 hours. Everyone says the 3-hour conversation, so about 2.5 hours of conversation. I think there's a lot more being agreed upon between sides that we don't know about. That's being at least thrown out there theoretically. I think that, especially after this phone call, probably the sort of like long-range picture of what's going to happen next is probably a lot more clear than we're aware of, because how many times can you talk about it's maybe it was a negotiation where it's like, look, 30-day ceasefire. Okay, 30-day ceasefire where you only attack their artillery. Okay, 30-day ceasefire when you only attack like their what is it, the air defense systems or like really long range rockets. Okay, then not that. How about you don't attack anything that's within the city? Okay, no, we can't go. Okay, how about you don't attack their energy infrastructure again? I guess maybe that's how the phone call went. Maybe that's why it took 148 minutes. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, Edward writes, I was happy for you when I've seen this post. That must have been a cool experience. What did they do while they were there? Oh, you're talking about Judge Napolitano and Larry Johnson. In fact, I need to write Larry Johnson today because I've been sick. I've been putting it off because, don't want to irk Larry. Do not want to pester Larry or irk him. That is not my job. But I wanted to write him about something. But anyways, they came because they wanted to meet up with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister. And some people I know were like, Tim, these people are coming here. We kind of need you to be a little bit of your do some guide duty. So I've kind of gotten the honor of being a trusted enough foreign person where I've had the honor of helping Pepe Escobar resolve some legal issues when he was here, but he was here in Vladivostok, and so was I, and to kind of help out with making sure that everything that the judge and Larry, and to an extent Mario Nawfal, although I didn't really see him much, he kind of had his own agenda, but, making sure that everything for them was smooth. If something didn't make sense, getting it, being the translator or working it out or whatever, resolving any sort of issues. So, yeah. But the whole thing I couldn't resolve is, on the one day when it was Women's Day, they wanted to go out to go somewhere really nice for dinner. And I'm like, guys, it's probably going to be pretty crowded. I mean, it is Women's Day. And so we went to like one restaurant, then another restaurant, then another restaurant, then another restaurant. And then eventually we just went back to like the hotel bar. They were like, dude, what is this? I was like, well, Women's Day. It's kind of like Mother's Day and Valentine's Day wrapped up in the one. What do you expect? They're like, I guess. And I told them a classic Russian joke, that, they tell me I live in a poor country when every restaurant was packed. Every restaurant was packed to the brim with people. And I get told all the time by Russians themselves, I live in a poor country. Okay, whatever. Whatever, guys. But ultimately, the mission of Andrew Napolitano and Larry Johnson and Mario Nawfal. I'm sorry, Mario, if I say your last name incorrect. It's spelled like Nawfal, but the Russians say it weird. They say it more like no-fall. But anyways, forgive me, Mario, if that's inappropriate pronunciation. Anyways, their mission was to talk to, Sergei Lavrov, and they did. So that's what the big job was. They also did a few other interviews, and all those interviews were posted to their respective channels, on social media. So yeah, if you have any maybe more specific questions, Edward, I'd be happy to tell you. Oh, the one thing I also did was people were asked, like, well, Tim, what would be a really cool thing to do for foreigners to see if they came to Moscow? And of course, I told them that, like, there's the problem of, that I've talked about on this channel many times before, of Russian, officialness. And I tried to say that, like, look, there is a place for haute couture. There is a place for, like, going to see the ballet at the Bolshoi Theater. Some people really dream of that. That's like their dream in life, is, oh my gosh, see the ballet at the Bolshoi Theater. But not everybody, man. And I think that, for the foreigners who come to Russia, there are some people I know who like some sort of high culture stuff. But ultimately, when people who are Westerners come here and start living here, the sort of really positive experiences they have tend to be like eating shashlik by the river, like with Russian people, or something like that, or just like hanging out, or like how Russians love to do, like, picnics and hang out at the dacha and all that other stuff and go to the banya and all that crap. That's kind of more what, like, normal people want to do. And so I kind of wanted to give them one normal experience. So they, I told them, and they organized it. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend because Tim always has to work every day of his life. Very far, far away, they went to a gun range and they had wild boar shish kebab, or shashlik, afterwards. So they got to have that real, like, simple Russian guy adventure. It show that although there's a bit more pains in the butt in getting them, guns are not illegal here. No matter what people tell you, they're not completely illegal. Tim, you are a gifted translator. I heard you on Hinkle. P.S. Good to see Nikki here also. It's the Nikki. Oh, I know you, Nikki. Very nice to have you here. So much appreciated. I'm also a fan of what you do as well. Well, yeah, I'm pretty good. I wouldn't say I'm the best because people who are real good translators, they're very, like, into the minutia, and they're very specific. And when I translate, I more or less translate the idea, and a lot of the specifics kind of get lost. So the translation is effective, but it's not exactly the kind that you would want to use for, say, a book. It's gets the job done. Unfortunately, I had to kind of part ways with Jackson. Not because of him, because it just was one of those kind of like time versus potential money kind of things, and it just kind of fell apart. But something changes. Jackson is a really nice guy, and I would be happy to do something with him in the future. In fact, why don't you tell him, have me on the show as a guest? Not as the translator. Have me on the show as a guest. I've got a lot of things to say most of the time, especially in podcast form. All right, well, there's some very positive messages. Oh my gosh. Well, that's nice when you're sick, when you get a lot of positive messages. Yeah, but anyways, guys, let's see, what else do we have here? The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated on X, we did conflict. Say on X, a peace and a ceasefire agreement, the conflict must end with a lasting peace. Again, it's very nice that Trump is also going into this whole lasting peace thing. It's good that Marco Rubio said that NATO expansion was one of the causes of the war, and that the United States is in a proxy war with Russia. That was also a very good thing, the right kind of speak, which... But, the agreement has to be based on logic, and the agreement can't be based on some sort of weird military-industrial complex idea of, let's just pause this for 30 days. That looks like peace, but it'll just keep the war going because we want more money or whatever, So, yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, guys. If someone wants to call in, use the raise your hand function, ask questions while you can, but... I guess that's really all I have to say about the phone call that shook the earth here. So there's a nice picture of Putin that I can use for the phone call image. Sadly, there's not a picture of Donald Trump using the phone. That would be nice. Or did I have that on another one? Where is this one? Oh, this one just has no picture. Wow. The Hill. No, not getting the rights. Oh, whoa, here's a really nice picture. I'm going to steal this one for the icon. Is Tim creative anymore? No, Tim steals everything. Unfortunately, I lost access to that really good AI image generating account that I used to use for some of my icons. That was nice, but that it became paid for. Oh, Sam wants to talk. Sam always has ideas. Okay, Sam, you're on the show. I'm not sure if people will be able to listen to you. Oh, I better turn on my volume so I can actually
Yeah,
hear you.
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm not rummaging. There's no train in the background. How are you, Tim?
Oh man, sick as a dog, and I don't know. I'm kind of in a weird thing. It's one of these things where Sam, I really appreciate all the warm messages I get from you guys, and stuff, and I don't know, man. I'm in a weird place. When I come
Yeah,
on these channel and do these live streams, I get the most like warmth I've ever gotten in my life. But then when I look at the subscriber count, slowly going down, you
yeah,
know, the people who are the main people who donate to this channel never like anything I do. So I'm like losing donation
uh,
money as well. I don't know, man. I'm kind of
uh,
in a weird state where I feel like I'm doing things in a true Russian way, horribly inefficient and for pennies, but with the right
well,
soul.
you are a cyber pioneer, so you have to pay your cyber pioneer dues.
Oh,
Okay,
I heard so.
this is you chopping wood and carrying water,
I
right?
see. Well, I was a cyber pioneer when YouTube was young. That's how. That's how. Because some people have been like, "Well, I'm a foreigner in Russia. Why the fuck do you get to be on all these TV shows?" Well, you should have been famous here in 2008. And then
Yeah,
you'd be on TV shows in 2025 too.
yeah,
So I kind
yeah.
of got lucky where I was at the right age at the right time to become internet famous when YouTube was young. But I'm no longer cyber pioneer, man. I don't think I have anything very particularly innovative happening here. And yeah.
Well, well, I'm still interested in coming to Russia. I'm looking for a Russian lady to meet me in the States or Canada or something and help me. Maybe they can find me through your channel.
Well, dude,
I'm
VK.com. Sign up to VK, Russia's biggest social network, and I don't know what it's called in English, but in Russian it's called Znakomstva, which is like getting acquainted.
Zakomstva.
And
Ah,
you can meet people, and they're primarily from Russia, and it'll be, well, meet women, for the purposes of dating and getting married. And it's free and it's amazing.
okay, okay, I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing I just working on my electrical exam right now. I've become an electrician. I'm already
Mm-hmm.
a plumber and farmer, so I don't know if it'll translate once I get over to Russia, but I'm sure
Well,
it
I
won't
mean,
hurt.
electricity is.
Yeah.
You're talking to someone who's a non-expert because I leave electrical issues to other people. Because if you screw up your
Hmm.
electricity or water, you're in deep trouble. If you screw up like I don't know, a stud frame wall or like one kitchen tile is out of position, you don't ruin your house. But anyways, the voltage here is different. So instead of being 110, it's 220. But other than that, I mean, all the concepts are the same. Like someone installs what's it's called, an outlet in America. I mean, they look different, but the concept is the same. Grounding
Right. Yeah.
electricity here is the same as grounding it anywhere. So
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
very similar.
And we follow the international plumbing and electrical code. Well, the electrical code is different, but the plumbing is all it's the international code at this point,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
in
yeah.
Tennessee where I'm from. So
Well, yeah, and
yeah,
also with plumbing, it's hard to screw up because in Russia they specifically make the pipes that are supposed to be outdoors are like a muddy orange, and the big pipes that are indoors are all gray, and then the little pipes that have to be that are always indoors are like white. So basically, you can just sort
okay,
of tell what a pipe's function is just by the color of it. So it's real obvious.
okay, all right. So orange, gray, and white. I got my first lesson started today
Yeah,
for
yeah,
being a
well,
santechnik.
yeah,
Я
Santechnik.
работаю
Well, see, you know
santechnik.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one, Santechnik. So yeah, that's a
yeah,
good one. That
yeah,
means a plumber or whatnot. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
I'm still practicing. Your books are good. I just fell off them. I kind of do different stuff. I got that green book, grammar for English speakers who want to, or
yeah, of,
whatever.
of course I
And
know
then,
that book. That's a classic.
yeah, it's a good one. It's just, there's so much to do, but I do the tapes, when I'm in my old truck and then I do some YouTube videos.
Oh, well, good, man. Just keep with it.
So
But the main
I'm
thing is,
still
Sam,
practicing.
that's another thing where I'd like to just apologize to you, and I don't know if anyone from the American Village is on here. There's a surprisingly large amount of people watching right now, but you know, I just have to apologize for everyone. I really wish the American Village would have been cheaper. It wound up being really expensive, and yeah. So Sam, I'd love to have you in the village. Love to build a house for you, but quite a pretty penny. So I don't know.
Well, I'm building my war chest right now so I can exit the empire.
All right.
But yeah, and I'm a catechumen in the Orthodox Church now.
Oh, that's good. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, that's will probably be a very life-changing experience for you. So,
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. It's more relaxing. You don't have to. What I noticed about the Orthodox Church is you don't have to try so hard. I mean, the priest knows you're not perfect. You know you're not perfect, but then you can kind of lay back and just enjoy the icons and
oh,
read about
well,
the saints. And
yeah.
it's more, yeah, it's more. It's not so cut and dry as Protestantism. Like
Well, yeah, and also you'll never be perfect. So no one ever will be. Only God is perfect.
yeah,
So that also kind of takes off some of the burden. But we're obligated to try. We're obligated to aim to perfection and kind of fall over a little bit of a. Oh gosh, what is that? Who's the guy who pushes up the rock up the hill in Greek hell? There is a little bit of that because we always have to strive to perfection, and yet we'll never
uh-huh.
achieve it. So there's a bit of that.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
but
Well, thanks, and I just want to congratulate you on your success with the first family.
yeah, and the second man, 2 houses done, but got to do more.
Oh,
Got to do more.
nice.
I cannot get a grant for this damn thing, or an investor. No one wants to invest in it or do a grant. So well, we'll see. Anyways, dude, talk to you later.
Yeah.
All the best.
Okay. See ya. Bye.
Oh, well, that was nice. Vitaly wanted to speak. Vitaly, did you want to speak, or did you accidentally want to speak? I'm allowing you to speak. If
Yeah,
you do, okay,
thanks. Yeah, I wanted to speak.
sure.
And well, I wanted to ask you what you make of the Europeans, the politics of the EU, and especially in the context of the phone call.
Oh
Seems
well,
like they're getting ready for war or something. Just very strange feeling
well.
about what they're doing.
You know what, Vitaly? Okay, I'm gonna just temporarily mute you there because when I have a long answer and I can kind of hear people wiggling around, it drives me nuts. So let me put it this way, Vitaly. I was kind of wanted to make like a short video about this. Let's talk about Conor McGregor visiting the White House on St. Patrick's Day. Now, Vitaly, you might think, Tim, why are you bringing that up? That's a weird thing to bring up. But one thing I kind of noticed was that well, I sort of thought, wait, Conor McGregor went to the White House to say that the globalist government of Ireland is awful. That's interesting. And a lot of people are seeing that almost in a way Trump is kind of wanting to maybe like, let's just say, divide America and make America sort of as anti-globalist as it can be. And sort of, it's almost like, you know how for the Soviet Union they had the motto of proletarians of the world unite. Well, it's almost like Trump to an extent and Putin over the decades. It's almost like, how about we just shove all the globalists into a garbage dumpster that's going to be called Europe? So, about whether there will be a war between Europe and Russia, I'm not sure. But I think there's definitely, again, for the first time that I've ever seen at the White House, we essentially had an anti-EU dissident by the name of Conor McGregor, in a gorgeous suit, by the way. No one picks out a suit like Conor McGregor. I'm envious. Guy's a fashion icon, unlike me. But he went up there and just trashed the globalists who've ruined Ireland. I think that's something we should take note of. That doesn't happen every day at the White House, does it? Yeah. And also when we look at how Trump kind of wants to make NATO pay each NATO country pay an insane amount of money that they can't afford to be in NATO, kind of makes you think he might want to be really getting rid of it. So to an extent, I'm hoping that Trump actually is trying to just sort of shove globalism, and Russia's going to shove globalism as to being some sort of European phenomenon. But will they go to war with Russia? That I don't know. No one really knows. It depends how insane their politicians are. But I think on some sort of instinctive level, like very oftentimes people have beliefs sort of in the front part of their head, but in the back part of their head, they know it's bullshit, and they know they're wrong, and so they don't really act on those beliefs. Let me say, for example, that there are a lot of people who talk about certain conspiracy theories, but then the answer would be, well, if you really believe that, why don't you do something about it? And they don't. They're like, Tim, in my neighborhood, there's 50 million chemtrails, and the water is completely going to change my gender and all this. Okay, well, if you really believe that you are being poisoned on a daily basis, well, why don't you go somewhere? Because they don't really deep down believe it. And I think that that's going to be sort of the savior factor, is I think so from sort of the front part of like Emmanuel Macron's mind. You know, the Russians are third class Aboriginal monkeys, and we can defeat them in a war, and we're France, and I'm baby Jupiter, or whatever the fuck he called himself once. But deep down, I think he really actually subconsciously knows that that would be his doom, and the doom of Europe. So, yeah. Or, who knows? I think also a lot of it, if we're talking about the future of Europe, because in the near future, we're going to have Matt Ehret come on the program. Because I think the real sort of den of evil of globalism throughout the generations has been kind of London. And so I think in some ways one of the reasons why Trump wants to take Canada is I think that Trump actually maybe not so much Europe, but despises the remnants of the British Empire. So we'll see about that. Because if there's anyone that Trump does not get along with, it's the British. So who knows? But I can't tell you whether the leadership in the EU are crazy enough to attack. But we've seen for a few years now various EU leaders from the Baltic states, to an extent, certain people in the Polish status quo, but in weird, not super confrontational ways. The Germans, in a very blunt way, the French and the English all call for, going to war against the Russians, how dare they attack the democratic Ukraine and all that. Have they done shit? No. And that would be with, in theory, dragging the United States into the conflict. And now that the United States definitely wouldn't go into the conflict, I don't know. Because during an interview, which I believe I uploaded, I think it was for RT Germany, and this video should be on my channels. Speaking of which, my YouTube channel got unbanned. Not the good YouTube channel that I really need, which had hundreds of thousands of subscribers in it in Russian, the English one. So it's back. But anyways, I did this interview for RT Germany, and I said that, look, when you talk about like this push button, shoot a rocket, 21st century, kill everyone kind of war, well, when you take the United States out of the equation, does Europe really actually have first strike capability? Is mutually assured destruction really a thing when you're talking about France, Germany? Well, Germany doesn't have nuclear missiles because of their legacy. So you have France and England together. Do they really have either mutually assured destruction with the Russians or like a first strike capability? I'm not even sure. Even many years ago when I used to actually work for RT English and I was on air, like the British were complaining that their Trident system, like how they have the nuclear missiles on like submarines and around the water and all that, was just completely ineffectual. So I don't even know. To an extent, it might not really wind up being like a war between Europe, the EU, I should say, and Russia, but it would just be kind of like a massacre by missiles, because I'm not really even sure. And again, not a military expert. See, this is one of the things. I wish I had a professional editor so I could just magically say with a nice little like sound effect, not a military expert. I have never served in the military except as part of a reality show. I don't think that really counts. So, yeah, guys, I actually think that it's very possible that if the EU did this, because again, the EU isn't the Ukraine. It's not like, well, if we blow up a building, we're going to be killing our own people, maybe some people who don't support us, or it's a big mass brother killing brother. At this point, especially after the whole biolab situation, if France and England get uppity, I don't know what's going to happen, guys. It could be really ugly. And that's one of the reasons why I think Europeans, if you're going to move to Russia, you might want to move now. I know it's called the American Village, but that was just a name for hype. Come move to Russia, Europeans. I will help you. Please do it, because you are not only becoming a garbage dump of globalists being kicked out from the rest of the world, but you are in the nuclear crosshairs because of your own leadership. Your own leadership in quotes. So, Vitaly, was that a good answer? Or was that a crappy answer? You're
Yeah,
back on the air.
I think you make a really good point, but yeah, yeah. I also thought that it was pretty much about the BlackRock, the BlackRock projects in
Oh,
Europe. Like Ukraine, a lot of Ukraine belongs to BlackRock, as we know. A lot of
yeah.
soil there is a long time,
Well,
contracts
yeah, and that's
with
Vitaly. What I was
BlackRock
saying
and
earlier.
and Germany as well.
That's what I'm saying earlier in
The
the show. Is that's why I
chancellor.
think Trump
Yeah.
is again. It's not just because he's a businessman, but there are influential, let's just say, organizations like BlackRock, which would be like, well, basically, let's just say Trump said, "I'm just going to walk away from the war and let Russia have the whole damn thing. They can just do whatever the hell they want. I don't care." Well, then people like BlackRock are going to be really uppity and angry at Trump. But if Trump gets a nice, juicy, huge piece of land that has rare earth minerals on it, even if it doesn't, he can go back and be like, well, look, guys, I got us out of this. And look at this, there's going to be so much for you to use. Miles and miles and miles of goodies for you. You win, I win, America wins, the world wins. Oh my gosh, I'm the best president ever. You see?
Yeah, but I just thought that Trump and BlackRock, they're natural enemies, because BlackRock was always establishing this uh, their own infrastructure, the
Yeah.
projects in Europe here and there, and Trump, he's a nationalist.
Yeah.
If anything,
Well, hey,
and
man.
then they are transnational, so they are natural enemies and they cannot be reconciled,
Well,
and one of them will have to get rid of the other one
it
at
kind of
some
reminds me
point.
of Vitaly. I'm going to mute you here again, not because you're a bad person, but because I can tell you one thing. One time during my career in the Russian media, this is just an example to sort of talk about Trump, where I unfortunately sort of had like a boss who really didn't like me personally. I can only guess as to why, and I think it would be immature if I took my guesses, but he didn't like me. And the one thing is, I kind of had to live with him because there was, not much I could do about it. Whatever. So it's kind of like Trump with maybe someone like BlackRock or some of these other, let's just say, the Israel lobby or something. Maybe certain aspects of them you don't like, but you're stuck with them. Until one day I found out that he wanted to liquidate me and replace me with 3 college student foreigners because they could create 3 times more content, but be younger and cheaper, basically for the same price. And that's when I destroyed his career. You see what I mean? That guy no longer works in the media, and I do. So it's one of those things where sometimes you kind of have to play ball until things go too far. And then you have the right to kind of fire back. And I think that Trump might be in that kind of position where he's like, okay, we don't really like each other. I can tell you don't like me, but let's try to be civil for now and just not rock the boat. Because, that was a sort of work-related thing. But remember when, work-related things are, who knows? He could have, the guy, when he found out that I was the one who put the on his career, which I told him to his face, he could have brought a gun to work and shot me over it. You know what I mean? So, you see, sometimes it's better to play ball with the people that despise you in big politics, especially when you're talking about revolutions, assassinations, and all that other stuff. So, maybe something like that. Anyways, guys, I'm going to take a look at the messages that are written. And if someone wants to call in, I'll take one more call. And if not, I will vanish. Excuse me again, guys. I'm sick. That's why there's so much nose touching in this episode. I know some people said, Tim, you touch your face a lot when you talk. Sorry. Anyways, any ideas on the U.S. and the Middle East? Ooh, the U.S. and the Middle East? Well, that's again, I think one thing is even before the Russians and the United States went to talk in Saudi Arabia, they mentioned something that They're not just going to talk about Ukraine, but they're going to talk about global security, especially the Middle East. So I think there also is probably something being dealt with between America and the Middle East. Between America, not the America and the Middle East, between America and Russia regarding the Middle East. Excuse me, misspoke there. Turning into Biden. But what that is, I'm not sure. I can say one thing, that Trump is not dumb, and I'm not super sure that he likes this whole, how should I put it, financing Wahhabist stuff. So the Russians, again, that's something where I think he and the Russians agree very much, but I really don't know, because I'm definitely, it's Tim Kirby Russia, not Tim Kirby the world. I don't like to talk too much about the Middle East when I'm definitely not an expert on it. All I could say that's something interesting happening in the Middle East is it seems like the Russians are sheltering a lot of Alawites and Christians around their military bases. So who knows? Maybe we're going to get a lot of Syrian immigrants in the near future. So would the U.S. ever join BRICS? Asks Moscow Settlers. If you would ask me that question before November of last year, as in before the U.S. elections, I would have said no, absolutely not. Now it's weird. It's gone from absolutely not to within the realm of possibility. Not saying it's likely to happen. It's kind of like for you people who remember Dungeons and Dragons, you have a 20-sided die, and if you roll a 20 on the die, you automatically succeed, even against a really tough challenge. I think it's at this point, it's gone from being a 0% chance to needing a natural 20 on a 20-sided die. I think it's kind of within the realm of possibility. But remember, so far, Trump is not super keen on giving up the dollar. And I think he perceives BRICS as being an anti-dollar club. So that's something that would be a real kind of like sticker. Also, one aspect of BRICS that we don't talk about much is if you're a psychopath like me and you actually read the BRICS documentation, which I forced myself to do, I'm not a big fan of reading, unfortunately. I'd be probably a better analyst, podcast host if I was more of a reading fan. But I did read like the sort of membership qualifications documentation for BRICS. It wasn't that lengthy, thankfully, but it was very wordy. And one of the key points is that, with the exception of UN-mandated sanctions, as in where the whole world and the entire Security Council of the UN say this country's gone over the line, we're going to sanction them. The BRICS countries are not supposed to sanction any other BRICS member unless it was a complete UN landslide decision. So, if the US wanted to join BRICS, it would immediately have to cease all sanctions against Russia, the whole thing. From the littlest thing to the biggest thing, all of them. And if, it would also be Iran. Yeah, because Iran would then, because they're a member. So they have to get rid of all the anti-Iran sanctions. Any, although they're somewhat limited, basically China, that's probably a big barrier to entry. Because if you join BRICS, then you essentially have to be against sanctions, except for the most absolute dire of situations. So, based on that, I don't think so. The United States would probably also have to leave NATO because one of the other philosophies of BRICS in the multipolar world is to not have, blocks anymore. That the whole NATO versus Warsaw Pact or Axis versus Allies has really not been a great thing for the world and not super good for peace and humanity. So again, being part of a big military bloc is another barrier to entry into BRICS as well. So there we go. Another question from Moscow Settlers. Again, hello. Why do you think President Trump is so motivated to end the confrontation between Ukraine and Russia? Why is he so motivated? I don't know if, let's just say that Trump really does believe what he says, that he really is against the whole woke agenda, he's against globalism, so on and so forth. Well, I mean, that war really serves a globalist agenda. It certainly doesn't serve an American agenda. You know, it brings America to the brink of a nuclear war to achieve what? Nothing. Most of the U.S. foreign policy. That's another reason why Trump talks about Greenland, annexing Canada, this, that, and the other. I think Trump really wants to pull back. Pull back. You know, put those guys on the border. So, it's not so much that Trump is obsessed with, like, I've got to be best friends with Russia. We've got to be best friends with Russia and build a future together and be like the best buddies ever. And I love Putin. It's not so much like that. It's more like, why am I fighting these guys? There's a sort of contingent of right-wing people in the United States. We could call them your Tucker Carlsons. You could call them, Judge Napolitano and a lot of his guests, your sort of Scott Ritter types. Who else could we say? Alex Jones, who kind of have woken up to the fact that Russia's different now. And you can hear them talk a lot, especially that like a Carlson Sanchez interview where it's like, why are we fighting against them? What's the conflict? What's the basis? Why? Like, obviously Russia has a huge nuclear arsenal. The United States should, have its nuclear arsenal ready to go just in case something weird happens in Russia, obviously. But besides that, like, what? Why fight them? Overthrow them? What's the deal? We want to make America a really freaking rich country that has nice infrastructure again and a smart, healthy population. I really, guys, I pray that Robert Kennedy Jr. can really work on some of these health issues that are in America. I hope and pray that he can get that job done. Maybe more than any of Trump's team. I really hope he means what he says and is capable of doing it. So, but anyways, so it's kind of like Trump's like, what does this get me? What does this war get me? Why does being enemies with Russia in any way benefit me? Again, it's kind of like how Putin has been saying that one of the concepts of the multipolar world is we're not looking for alliances here. We're looking for neutrality. So we're not, I don't know. I just think that if Trump really wants to have some sort of anti-globalist, pro-human, pro-American, like civilizational revival, then wasting all your money and energy and resources fighting Russia is really contradictory to that because the Russians, and in a lot of ways, the Chinese and the Indians and the Iranians kind of want the same thing, but in their own flavor. So you're essentially fighting against your own mission. That's why. If he's telling the truth. Layla writes, Layla Steele spelled like the way that famous singer from Typo Negative, Peter Steele, wrote his last name. So Layla Steele, perhaps you're related to the legend himself. Gothic rock and roll. So he can have a USA-Russia hockey game. Like, give me a freaking break. Clearly they aren't serious. We all know it should be Canada. Oh, that must be something not related super to this conversation, but I don't know. The USA does pretty good at hockey. Canada's a little better. I don't know. I'm not a real big hockey fan. Too old, can't see the puck. Although I appreciate the sportsmanship that's involved. But we all know my sport of choice, and we don't need to bring them up. Oh, Moscow Settlers. So Daniel, hello. Daniel wants to talk. Daniel, you are on the air, and you're the last caller because I feel poopy.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes.
So I was just thinking, what do you think about maybe, because of this, since the situation between Ukraine and Russia has happened, it's made China and Russia much stronger as allies. So maybe
again,
this
not
is
necessarily
something
allies. Allies is probably the wrong word, but their partnerships are huge. But again, what is your specific question, like the future of Chinese-Russian relations?
I think President Trump might not like this.
Oh,
Might not like what's happening. So he wants to end this situation.
Oh, okay.
Maybe,
well, here,
maybe he thinks it's bringing them closer together ever since this conflict started.
Oh, okay. Well, then hold on. Oh, all right. I'll mute you again. Not because you're a bad person. I'm a huge fan of yours as a human being, but I cannot have background noises. So here's the thing: is a lot of people that I've talked to don't like the word multipolar world. I like it. I'm happy with it. But they say because in a lot of magnet there's like two poles, and having multiple poles doesn't really make sense in science. But anyways, so when you talk to a lot of those people, they actually want you to view the world as being multinodal. Okay, so we have these various different nodes, and so like the node that connects America to Russia, and America to China, and then from China to Russia. We see there's like a triangular set of nodes, and of course there's the other great civilizations on our planet, like like the Indians or sub-Saharan Africa. Although their nodes might be kind of small and a bit squishy, but they're still on there. But anyways, if we look at things that multinodal model, you can see that the connection between the China and Russia nodes is like super mega thick and strong, because of what the events during the Biden regime and the beginning of the special military operation. The connections between the Russia and USA node are very thin. They used to be quite thick. Of course, the node really benefited America a lot more than Russia, but it is now like super, super thin. And because Trump also wants to kind of like push away Chinese goods, he's also thinning the connection between the America node and the Chinese node, although it's still quite thick compared to the Russia one. So if you are thinking about having a balanced, kind of multipolar world foreign policy, well, you can see that that's not great. That is not a great position for the former world hegemon to be in. And so I think that as we go into the future, this multinodal way of thinking is an important way to look at foreign policy, where if you really wear away at one node, then it just makes the connections between others become stronger. And more or less, that's like the whole BRICS thing, is it's almost like a lot of the nodes have like completely allied together because they're so angry at the United States. And so in a lot of ways, Trump has to do is one of his missions is to transform America into something that is a non-enemy, so that way the other nodes don't all hate it, right? So so this is a bad situation. Maybe not so much because Russia and China are friends, but because their friendship has been the result of a lot of eroding of connections between the United States and China. It's kind of like how Hideo Kojima talks about we need connections in the game Death Stranding. It's kind of like that. So So I don't really know too much. Or I do know, but I don't really want to comment too much about like a lot of stuff related to China. Because again, Tim Kirby Russia, not Tim Kirby China. But if you think about it, well, here's one thing. Not my opinion. The opinion of a lot of economists. They say that one of the big problems between America and Russia, in terms of economic cooperation, is they're too similar. They're both big. They both have a lot of diversity. They both have a lot of geological diversity and a lot of resources. And so in some ways, too, one of the problems between the U.S. and Russia is there's not enough to really hook around. Like, I'll put it this way. If the U.S. was able to restore its industrial capacity to the level it was at, like in, say, the 50s or 60s, well, then China would become useless to the United States. Like if we as in Americans could produce the way we used to produce back in the old days, it'd be like, well, we can buy our clothes ourselves, we can produce this ourselves, and that would really also then really change the relationship with China. As Ron Paul, I've pointed out this program, so you might be sick of me saying it, but Ron Paul said the best way to achieve peace is to have interconnecting, multinodal, he didn't say multinodal, but in the modern context, he probably would mean that, interconnecting interdependencies economically. That if we have a lot of interdependencies, if we were to attack the other side, we'd shoot ourselves in the foot. And one of the problems between the USA and Russia is especially from the USA, from the USA giving stuff to, or let's say, the US's dependence on Russia was vastly, vastly, vastly smaller than the Russia's dependence on the USA, and that's kind of what has led us here to this point. So, Yeah, I'm kind of prattling on a little bit here, but we're kind of going into this like multinodal thing. And basically, one way to create a lot of peace in the future is to have a little bit of dependency and a healthy relationship between all the nodes. So you're constantly in a balancing game. That's kind of like how, again, Russia gets along with China, but Russia has a really strong military pact with North Korea. But that allows then the Chinese to do a lot of drills and practices with the Belarusians. You see, it's kind of like a balancing thing, right? And to an extent, China has this good business relationship with Russia, but they don't want to then have a terrible relationship with India. And so Russia goes down to India. And as we all know, China sells a lot of freaking stuff to the United States, guys. And so China, despite having a good relationship with Russia, can't just abandon the United States, or I think its economy would collapse. Like if tomorrow Trump just said no Chinese products in America, it would really hurt America, but it might even topple China. So, yeah, it's all about these sort of balanced interactions between each other. And the problem that 1990s Russia and 1990s America, that was a completely one-way street. 100% one-way street. Anyways, are there any written comments? No. Thanks, Tim. Stay strong. God bless. You too, man. All the best. Anyways, I am out. I'm going to stop recording. Tim Kirby Russia signing out. Gotta feel better.